Today, I'm going to be sharing with you lessons that I've learned when cooking and baking with silicone products. I'm going to share with you the pros and the cons and also some great tips when using them. Hi, I'm Melissa Diane, and on this channel we have so much fun in the kitchen and the garden and doing all kinds of things in our home. And today we're focusing on the silicone products, so let's get to it. We're going to start with the pros or the perks of using silicone products, and I have 5 of those to share with you. First of all, obviously they're non-stick, and that's the big draw for using these products. Secondly, they unmold extremely easy. The products that you put in them, they pop out. They're very easy to unmold. Thirdly, for many of the products, you have to read on the instructions, but for many of the products, you can actually take them and go from the oven to the freezer, and then from the freezer to the oven. And then if you're using silicone utensils like some of these, what's so nice about them is they don't scratch your pan. So that's a big pro. If you have some really nice cooking skillets and pans like I do, then you don't want to be using items that are going to scratch those. So the silicone spatulas really help with that. And then lastly, another pro that I have found and a lesson I've learned is they don't stain. I have many of these little wooden spoons, and after a while they'll stain, they'll start to chip and they will stain. And I have found that on my silicone ones, there's no staining. And now for the cons of using your silicone products. First of all, for the items that you bake in them, they're not going to brown as easily on the exterior. So you're going to have to go a little bit longer. You may need to lower the temperature a little bit and to cook them a little longer, but just know that sometimes that exterior will not brown quite as quickly. Also, if you're using like muffin pans like these right here and they're in silicone, they'll get kind of wiggly when they get warm, so you want to make sure that you're always placing your silicone products on like a cookie tray, some type of tray when you're putting those into the oven. And then for certain recipes, for some of my recipes, it will say to go ahead and still oil them before you put in your products. You can use a little bit of butter and maybe some little flour on top. Very often, I'll just take some olive oil and with a little pastry brush and just still go ahead and do that real quickly in them, just to help with that. And then again, as far as the baking time, sometimes you're just going to have to bake them a little bit longer. I have found maybe anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes longer. Now I'm going to share with you 8 tips that I've learned when baking with my silicone products. And I will tell you that out there on the internet, there are all different opinions on using silicone, not using silicone. And so these are simply some tips for you if you choose to use them. First of all, when you get your new products, you want to make sure that you just wash them really well, thoroughly with some water. I just put a little bit of Dawn soap in them and then let them air dry. Next, you need to understand how high you can actually heat your oven. And so most of the time, I think the rule of thumb is don't heat your oven over 400. For these 2 items here, these are a couple of muffin pans that are silicone that I got at our local H-E-B grocery store, and the instructions or the directions that came with these said not to heat them over 428. I just like to say 400 to be on the safe side. Also, you don't want to take these and like sit them right here. If you're on your cooktop and you got something else heating up there, don't put them real close, it'll get too warm. And I don't know, I haven't experienced it, but I think that maybe it could start melting, so I'm just careful not to put them too close to my cooktop. These will tear if you have a knife and you're trying to get them out with a knife. You don't need to do that. Your items are going to pop out so easily. Just make sure you don't use any knives around them to poke any holes in your silicone cookware. The 5th tip that I'm going to share with you is that if you're using like muffin tins or muffin pans, then you need to make sure that once you fill them all the way up, you just kind of go ahead and tap them. Just like you would your other ones. Just go ahead and tap them to get all of those air bubbles out, and that way they'll cook a lot more even. The 6th tip is I mentioned a little bit earlier, but since these do get a little bit wiggly, especially when they're warm, you want to put these on a cookie tray and then place them in the oven. The seventh tip is for cleaning. They're so easy and wonderful for cleaning. You just go in your sink, put a little bit of water, like I said, a little Dawn soap on there, wash them out really good, and then just make sure you air dry them. I just sit them over and I just let them air dry. And for our last tip, when you are storing these items, be sure and you store them flat, because you may also be using like some silicone mats that you can lay out. Those are wonderful. But when you can roll those up, those are the only ones you really can roll. But for everything else, you might be tempted to kind of fold these up. This one has a metal right inside of it. These have a little metal ring, so it prevents you from doing that. But I've seen many of these that you can fold them. Don't do that. You want to make sure that you store them flat so they don't crack. If this has been helpful, please click that like button, and would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube family. Be sure and check out that next video that's popping up, and I'll see you there in a few minutes. Bye-bye.